Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner. I'm here with the mighty Laura Dodd, head book by Forbidden Planet, and we are privileged to be joined by the one, the only, Tanya Byrne. How are you, Tanya?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Yes. Really well, and really honoured that you've joined us today for this episode of Forbidden Planet TV, where we are going to be talking about Afterlove. And as we were talking about off camera, Dodd is a massive fan of yours and has been champing at the bit to ask you some questions. So, Laura, why don't we kick off?
Let's get on with it then.
Come on. So, without too many spoilers, what can you tell us about Afterlove?
So Afterlove is the story of Poppy and Ash, who meet on a school trip to Rampion Wind Farm, which is perhaps the most glamorous meet cute ever invented. And they form head over heels in love with each other and everything's wonderful. And then on New Year's Eve, Ash sneaks out to meet her on the beach for a party, and her mum finds out, and in her haste to get home before she gets in trouble, she's hit by a car and killed. And the legend goes that the last person to die on New Year's Eve becomes the Grim Reaper for their parish. So at that point, so it's told him before and then after the afterpart kicks in, and Ash becomes the Grim Reaper for Brighton. And she is assigned adolescent sudden deaths because that's how she died. So she is put together with a group of Grim Reapers. So there's 3 of them, and then Deborah, the mysterious Deborah, who I quote, knows everything and tells them nothing. And basically from that point on, she is responsible for carrying souls, escorting souls from where they died to the beach, where Sharon is waiting, and takes them on the boat to wherever it is that they're going. And she describes herself as a glorified cab driver for the undead, or the recently dead. So that's basically her job. It's quite boring. They're just sitting around waiting for people to die. And then all of a sudden she sees Poppy again, and the story kicks off again. And without too many spoilers, basically the point is that Poppy and Ash get an ending that they didn't have before.
Wonderful. Fantastic.
Now, with the Reapers idea, it sounds like a deliciously queer version of Scythe.
Yeah.
Where did you get the inspiration from?
It is actually a real legend that they believe in parts of Cornwall and France, that the last person that dies on New Year's Eve becomes the Grim Reaper. So once I discovered that, because I wanted to write a Grim Reaper book, and I looked into the law, and I just kind of ran with it. And I must admit, I don't have a great imagination also when it comes to fantasy and stuff, so I could only write what I know. So it's very kind of real based in real life. And the idea is that Reapers move among us because everyone's going to die. So everyone can see Reapers, but you can't see them how they used to look before they died until it's your time. So it's kind of like, I describe it as, the person standing behind you in the queue at the cash point, or the woman that serves you in the co-op, or the person that's sitting next to you on the bus. You see them, but if someone asked you to describe them in any detail, you wouldn't be able to. Maybe the colour of their hair or their coat or whatever. So they move among us, and if you see them as they looked before, then it's your time, and it's too late, basically. So it's set in a bookshop in Brighton, where they basically hang around and wait for Deborah to give them like a little post-it note with like a name, a date, and a location. And they just go and they escort the soul down to the beach. And it had to be Brighton in that sense, because I needed to be by the sea. But then I'm biased because I currently live in Brighton, so that's all. So I was like, oh, good, I get to write about the place that I live and love.
Because did you used to live in London and then you moved to Brighton? Yes.
I lived in London for like 40 years. I was born in the Royal London, so it doesn't get more London than that. And I grew up in East London and then went to Kingston University. So I then ended up in South London. And then I moved here. It's 4 years next month since I moved here.
Have you enjoyed living there, Tanya?
Yeah.
I have. I've loved it. Absolutely love it. There's something about the sea and me that I find incredibly calming. I like being near water. And yeah, I just feel a lot like when I go and have to visit London, or I did a book signing in Manchester, BC, before COVID. And I just felt really hemmed in, and I just like, I like to be here by the sea. I find it very calming and it clears my head, and my head does get a bit sometimes.
You know what, I really understand that. I too grew up by the sea, although I grew up by the cold North Atlantic in Liverpool. But there's something about having that access to the waves, both from a visual and an oral standpoint. It's amazing, isn't it? And it definitely blows the cobwebs out of your head.
It really, really does. And I moved here it was like August bank holiday weekend, and so it was the tail end of the summer. And someone said, if you can love Brighton in the winter, you'll love Brighton all year round. And it's true. I'm glad I moved here so I got that back, because it's cold like I've never felt before. Will knock you off.
That's right. Yeah.
But it is, it's good for, and we're really lucky here because we've got the sea, but we've also got the Downs. We've got the South Downs, so you have that beautiful mix of like rolling hills and then also the sea. And one of my favourite walks is Seven Sisters, which is Beachy Head basically. So you park up and then you walk through the Downs, and all of a sudden you go over the hill and there's the sea. It just appears from nowhere in these cliffs. It's just beautiful. So you get like both of them. So yeah, I love that. I have a dog, so we love walking.
Isn't Beachy Head aren't they the cliffs that you see in Quadrophenia?
Yes, Quadrophenia obviously is very Brighton. We have August bank holiday weekend is when the mods usually come down, and they used to, obviously they haven't for the last couple of years, they have a big screen on the beach where they show Quadrophenia, and then all of the scooters line up along the beach, and it's like a big parade and everyone's in their mod best. It's a lot of fun, because the bar that's on the beach, I think it's Volks, used to be, or maybe still is, a mod pub. So
yeah, right.
It's incredible. It's like going back in time. It's just like
yeah. No, I love the fact that Brighton's honoured that tradition. And Dodd and I were talking before we came on camera about that beautiful sense of place that's in this book, and about those surroundings. And we were going to ask you, do you take inspiration from your surroundings, and where would you recommend people visit on a day trip to Brighton? So you're way out in front of our questions now.
See, I'm a professional.
Yeah,
of course. Segue.
The natural segue, the natural narrative segue.
See? Of course, Brighton. I wanted Brighton to be basically another character in the book, but I also wanted to show Brighton off season. So it's Brighton in the winter. It's not sunshine and fish and chips on the beach and pride. So you get to see the real Brighton, what it's like to actually live here. And it's lovely, don't get me wrong, but it's not the liberal utopia everyone thinks it is. And so I wanted the elements to kind of feed into the book, into the atmosphere of the book, a bit of foreshadowing and all that wanky literary stuff. So very much inspired by Brighton, by the atmosphere here, the people, the places. Obviously Ash grows up on what's essentially an estate, and Poppy he lives in a very nice house and goes to a boarding school. So you get to see every corner of Brighton, I hope. So if you were coming here for a day trip, there are a few places I would recommend. I think St James's Street is kind of Kemp Town. I live in Kemp Town, but I live near the marina. So I live in Kemp Town proper. There's a bit of about what Kemp Town seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but I'm in actual Kemp Town, which is where Thomas Kemp lived. And so there's a lot of blue plaque on one of the houses and stuff. But where I am is very Regency. It's very kind of, if you want like the crescent, the white houses, and then you've got Blackrock, which is that's where the beach is. So you've got the little train that goes along. so you can actually follow what happens in the book. So you can start Sussex Square is where Poppy lives, and you could go along the beach there and then go to the mini golf place where they play mini golf. And as we all know, Essen says that if you win this game, that doesn't change anything. If you play against Grim Reapers, it doesn't mean that you get to change anything. And then there's like a little cafe there, and you can keep going, and there's the pier, and then obviously you can go into the lanes. But St James's Street, Twin Pines is a coffee shop that I recommend. Not recommend, but it's on Poppy and Ash's list of things that they're going to do the following year, which obviously doesn't happen. So there's Twin Pines, which is a lovely little coffee shop that you probably wouldn't even know was there. You walk past it if you were a local, you wouldn't know, because it's actually downstairs. And then there's so in town itself, there's the there's lots of different cafes and shops and stuff. Sadly, the bookshop where this is set doesn't exist. It used to exist, but in a different road, but it's since closed down, which is a shame. So, you know, a Bird and Blend, which is where Poppy goes to drink all the teas, that exists. The Flower Pot Bakery, which becomes their cafe on Sydney Street, that exists. So even like down to a Snooper's Paradise, which is where they go and try on all the hats and they see the taxidermy rat and stuff, that's that exists. And then obviously across the road from there's Resident Records, so that's like a really lovely part of town, I think, the lanes. And there's lots of little shop, you know, so outside Snoopers is where the jewelry shop is, where Poppy's trying all the hoop earrings on, and then across the road from that is the jewelry shop where she finds the bumblebee necklace. So pretty much there's so many things in the book that do actually exist, and I will one day, I keep promising to do a video tour of them all.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
You'd be so good at that, mate. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I will, because my friend Maya, she's my friend's daughter, she graduated from Bournemouth with a degree in cinematography, so I think I might get her to do it. She just worked on the Harry Styles film, so can you imagine? Can you do me a little video of walking around after working with Harry Styles?
Oh my God.
But she said she would. She promised me she would. But I think I'm going to do it for New Year, because I think I want to do it at the time that the book is set. So I think I might do it in time for New Year's Eve. Although obviously New Year's Eve, I don't know if it's going to be the same. That, you know, last year was quite weird. I went down to the beach on New Year's Eve and there was not a soul on the beach, and it was very, very strange.
Yeah.
That it's empty beaches, and again, because of the way I grew up, I have a lot of experience of this. You know, walking around the beach at night, it's a very eerie experience.
Yeah, I mean that road,
particularly in winter.
Oh, it's particularly, but that road, Marine Parade, where so basically you cross over from where I live to where the beach is, it's quite a busy road. You just can't cross that road. At the moment, they're actually building a zebra crossing so you can get across it. And during lockdown, you could just walk across it. You know, it was so strange. And I was like, well, this is what the world would be like without cars.
Yeah, right on.
Brighton's very, you know, into that. You know, there's that saying that anything goes in Brighton but gluten. Very, very true. It's very true. I actually used to work in a cafe. It was like I say a cafe. It was a vintage 1940s tea room, and I can testament to the fact that anything goes but gluten. You know, it's just like the amount of, you know, requests we'd have for the coffees and cakes and stuff like that, and it's just like, okay, I just like a nice cup of tea and a cake, but okay. I will do your dry oat milk latte.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah.
I know we are racing towards the end of our time, so I'm conscious of the fact that I know Dodd has got a few more book-specific questions for you.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So with kind of the impact of first love, especially obviously in Afterlove here, shown obviously between Ash and Poppy, do you remember your first crush or first love?
It's a strange one for me because I came out when I was 40, so I came out quite late, but I always knew. So my crushes, my first crushes were boys, but they weren't real, if that makes sense. So I would fixate, like Jordan Knight from New Kids on the Block, I was absolutely obsessed with him. But that was a safe little crush to have because it was never going to happen, and you know, he was there. And so my kind of first crushes were very difficult for me because I thought we were friends, or I thought it was something else. And then now later in life I was like, oh, you just like Lisa Bonet, for example, from the Cosby Show. I just thought she was pretty. Or Hilary Banks, oh, she's got such nice hair, I like her clothes. No, you were in love with her. But I didn't realize it at the time. So it's a strange thing talking about first crushes, actually. But yeah.
That's very interesting, mate.
Yeah.
And the female friendships in the book as well are just so compelling, especially with
so well drawn.
Yes, they're so great. Did you kind of draw on any of your real life friendships?
Of course. I mean, I wanted to write a book about love, and for me, it was about more than just Poppy and Ash. It was familial love and friendship. Like female friendships are incredibly important to me. So yeah, I just, like I said, I don't have much of an imagination, so I can only write what I know. So I write about the way that I love my friends and they love me back, and what I need from them and what they need from me, and that's all I can write, really, because I don't know any differently.
I think the result is just supremely authentic, mate. It's actually a pleasure to read, very emotionally resonant.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. I mean, it was quite hard because my mum passed away the day my third book came out, and I kind of said, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. I just felt, because she was sick for like a year before she passed away, so I was at the hospice every day. I was like feeding her, and I mean, if you've read the acknowledgements, you kind of can guess. I won't go too much into it because I do talk about it in the acknowledgements, but I really felt that was it. Like, if you cut me open, there's nothing left, it's just smoke would come out. And so I came out, which really helped, and then I moved to Brighton and got the job in the cafe. In typical Brighton style, I worked for Greenpeace. I was like, happy, I'm never doing this again. But my agent was just like, no, you'll come back to it. And I was like, no, I won't, it's fine. But she was right, because I'm a writer, and what we do is, I wrote my way through it. The only way that I could do it was by writing through it. And I often say that writing is really difficult, because you have to, I mean, apart from the fact that it's difficult, is because you have to articulate the things that other people can't. You have to be able to say those things out loud and put them into words. So I sat down to write a book about grief and to write a book about death, and it ended up becoming this book about love. And I just kept thinking about, if you lose someone, what do you want? Obviously you want them back, but just to have one more day with them, just to say goodbye, and all of that. And that's what I wanted to give Poppy and Ash. They get their ending, and that's more than most people ever have. So it's about love, it's about family, it's about friendship, it's about all of those things. And if you think that it resonates, then I'm thrilled. But if a 14-year-old brown queer girl who's never read a book about herself before picks it up and thinks, or maybe I'm gay and I don't think Hilary Banks has got pretty hair, I'm actually in love with her, then great.
that is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know who the modern equivalent of Hilary Banks would be as well.
Olivia Rodriguez, maybe.
That's a great call, Olivia Rodriguez.
Or Hallie and Chloe, or I don't know, someone like
that. So you also do an amazing amount to boost other authors and creators. Are there any books we should be on the lookout for coming out soon?
Well, it's hard because I am mentoring someone at the moment, but their book hasn't come into fruition. They're still working on it. So for me, I think it's just about, I did it the hard way, in the sense that I don't have a creative writing degree from UEA or anywhere else. I just used to spend my Sundays just writing in my spare room, and then when it was ready for me to go out on sub, I just did it, went to the websites of the agencies and sent, at submissions out, and sent them my book. But I'm very aware of the fact that as a brown queer woman, a lot of that has to do with luck and a bit of talent, I hope. And I'm very conscious about putting the ladder back up after me. So anything that I can do to kind of encourage writers, I will do. And I try and amplify as many voices as I can on my Twitter. And yeah, I think things are changing. I think from, it's 10 years this year since I signed with my agent. I think things could move a little bit more quickly. I think sure. I'm happy to have been part of that movement, and to hopefully help some writers find their voice and tell their own stories. And while I'm not going to take credit for any of it, I will always be cheering them on from the sidelines.
And as we wrap up, Tanya, what are you working on now?
So the next book's very different. I'm a bit concerned because it's really different. It's basically Lord of the Flies with a load of teenagers in the Brecon Beacons. So
brilliant. I think that I can see that already.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to write a pandemic book, but not a pandemic book. So I feel like the weight of responsibility as a teen author to acknowledge what these kids have been through for the last 18 months and are still going through. So basically, it's the story of this professor that set up this social experiment to do with conflict theories, where basically she puts them all in the house, takes their phones away, and hopes that they're going to kill each other. But they don't know. They think they're just doing a digital detox. So when they find one of them finds out what's going on, they decide to turn the experiment on them because they're sick of adult shit, basically. And they're like, after the last year of being told that the pandemic is their fault, and go to school, don't go to school, eat out to help out. Actually, no, that's not helping out at all. Stop seeing your friends, stop going. They've realised the adults don't know what they're doing, and they've had enough. And they're inheriting a world where it's literally on fire, as we know from the ocean at the moment. And they've just had enough. So they decide to turn the experiment on the professor. So that's what I'm writing about now.
I can't wait for that. That sounds absolutely epic. And on that supremely positivist note, moving forward, this has been Forbidden Planet TV, and you've been watching myself, Andrew Sumner, the mighty Laura Dodd, and the amazing Tanya Byrne, who we have been privileged to host for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us, mate. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.